Hi there, and welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about Gods of the Wyrdwood by R.J. Barker. So, this is a author that I've seen quite a bit of hype for online. He has two previous trilogies, both of which seemed pretty well received. So, when I saw he was starting this new one, I decided it's about time I gave him a shot. So, figure may as well start to hop on the bandwagon sooner rather than later. So the first thing that really jumps out to me with Gods of the Wyrdwood is the world building. We have a pretty interesting world where the weather is based on whichever's the ascendant god at the time, and you have basically the followers of different gods vying to make their god ascendant, and depending on which one is ascendant, one part of the world compared to the others has better better weather, which directly correlates to easier life, better economic and better agricultural times, that kind of thing. So we follow a main character who was chosen to be basically the champion of a particular god, but before he could come into his own and have his god become ascendant, someone else won, and he basically got thrown out like yesterday's hot garbage. Fast forward 20 years, and the ascendant god is doing, the followers of the ascendant god is doing basically a pogrom to get rid of all the other gods and followers so that their god stays ascendant in perpetuity. So naturally, our main character, who's been basically just living life for the last 20 years, suddenly has a pretty big target on his back. So right off the bat, overall, this was, for me, it was a decent read. I feel like it the word count definitely could have been stripped down quite a bit. And it would still pack just as good a punch as it did. It's there's a lot of fascinating things going on in it, and it could have benefited from a little bit of shaving. The the bloat, along with the reluctance of the main character throughout the majority of the novel, makes it, for the most part, a very slow burn. Um, Not that there isn't stuff to keep you engaged throughout. There is. It's just don't expect like a fast paced, action packed read with this one. Um, Definitely the standout trait of this novel, I have to say, is R.J. Barker doesn't spoon feed you. He puts you in a world. He introduces things, and you just gotta accept and bless and go, and read and enjoy. He doesn't spoon feed. He leaves you to picture and imagine and slowly get bits of information until things become clear to you. No, infodumps don't happen. Infodumps happen very very rarely in this novel, and even when they do, it's largely piecemeal. Um, Overall, I think this is a novel that definitely falls into the low fantasy subgenre. Is low fantasy still a thing? I don't know, but yeah, I consider this low fantasy mainly because of the scope. Um, the overall arc, yes, you can definitely see it can become something grand, something epic, whatever. But the majority of this novel is focused very much on the day to day life of our main character, and the things he endures and the situations he ultimately ends up in. There's no it's very very ground to earth. Um, it's also very gritty. It reminds me a lot of the grimdark, the peak of the grimdark genre years, subgenre years, when authors were trying to be hyper realistic and you would have like all these gritty, de- intensely detailed things that you really don't need or care need really don't need to know or care to know. It's just thrown in there to add to the writing style more or less. For me, it fits the the story that this book has to tell and what it's all about. So it's not it's a good match. I can't complain. Um, but yeah, we get some we get some pretty interesting hot takes on this. For example, cooking meat by wrapping it in leaves and putting it at the bottom of your shoes whilst you go on a long walk, a long hike through a forest. Uh, yeah, I'll leave that one with you guys. Um, there is some pretty dark imagination on display, which goes in hand with this being very much a low fantasy grim dark novel. The the Wyrdwood in particular for me is up there with the stranger forests that we tend to see in fantasy novels. Probably one of the stranger ones, and not strange in a weird and wonderful way. Strange in a be very 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 careful way. Very eldritch, very horrific. I like it. It's my favorite part of this novel. Um, Overall, the book it's a reluctant call to arms. It doesn't really do much more than set up a very basic plot that you can tell it you can tell how it's going to play out. Um, it's very much a book that sets up the rest of the trilogy, and just go into it expecting that that's what you're going to walk into. It is the plot of this book is self-contained, but it's not by itself. It's not a very fascinating read. It's basically just the main character reacting to the situation, over and over and over, and not doing anything proactively. Um, so yeah, overall decent read. Like I said, it's it has enough to make me interested in seeing where things go, how things play out, especially with the ending, which by the way is a cliffhanger. So if you dislike cliffhanger endings, maybe wait until the next book in the series is out before you pick this one up, or even wait until the trilogy is finished. Um, on one hand, I would say that it's easy to find this it a tedious read because of how much of a slow burn it is. But on the other hand, you when you keep in mind that it is very much a low fantasy novel, maybe for uber fans of that particular subgenre, this will be a very engaging read. Um, it doesn't, like I said, for me, it doesn't quite detract from the enjoyment of the book overall. I don't have complaints. Is this worth reading? I guess if you're a fan of R.J. Barker, sure. Um, I suspect that in terms of the imagination, the writing, that kind of thing, this is very much his style, his way of doing things. Um, if the blurb catches you, sure, take a look at it. I wouldn't make it a very high priority, but it is a good way to pass a few hours, and it should if any of the things that I've described sounds like something you're into, it will it will be enough to engage you to at least pick up the following book or even continue the trilogy. And I do definitely see it having all the elements to make it a favorite trilogy for some fantasy fans. But like I said, overall for me, decent read, and I am looking forward to seeing how the story plays out. So I will be picking up the sequel, and let's see what happens. Let's see how things go. But yeah, that's all I have to say on R.J. Barker's Gods of the Wyrdwood. Um, Hopefully you found this helpful. And if you've made it this far, thank you very much. And I hope to see you in the comments, I guess.